Welcome, friends. My name's John Jeffrey. I'm a Bible teacher and a clinical psychologist by profession. Our topic today is be vulnerable. Be vulnerable. Our text is 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 8 and 8 through 10. The Apostle Paul is talking. 3 different times I begged the Lord to take it away. Each time he said, "My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I am glad to boast about my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ can work through me. That's why I take pleasure in my weaknesses and in the insults, hardships, persecutions, and troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong." The world considers weakness as a bad thing. No one wants to be weak. We all want to be powerful. But God turns the idea of weakness and powerful upside down. It's one reason the religious leaders in Jesus' day rejected him. He reversed weakness and powerful, and they didn't understand it. We want to understand it so that we can receive the power of God through weakness. But God's talking about a certain kind of weakness. A certain kind of weakness. It's a weakness that has to do with how you respond to being vulnerable. A certain kind of weakness that has to do with the change of heart and how you respond to being vulnerable. Now, what does it mean to be vulnerable? In any way, isn't it a good thing to be capable and confident and powerful in that kind of way? In other words, well, is being powerful always bad? No, of course not. Being capable and confident, powerful, those aren't bad things in and of themselves. But we're talking about those many, many times, even if you're confident and capable and powerful in that sense, there are still going to be many, many times in life where you are vulnerable. Well, what's vulnerable mean? Vulnerable is when those many, many times, everybody experiences that regularly, daily, weekly, many, many times when you are open to being hurt, to being injured, to being criticized, to being attacked, to being put in a very negative light. So God's talking about the special kind of weakness that has to do with how you respond to those moments when you are vulnerable. When you're vulnerable, do you pretend not to be vulnerable? Do you try to promote yourself? Are you preoccupied with trying to impress people and pretending not to be vulnerable? We don't want to respond with arrogance, trying to impress people. That's the opposite. Jesus warned against trying to impress people. So the kind of weakness that Jesus is talking about is being vulnerable, being sincere, being honest, doing honest self-assessment. Don't be defensive. Be genuine, be vulnerable, and let the chips fall where they may. Okay, Doc, so can you just kind of put it on in a nutshell? What are we supposed to do? We're not supposed to be, when we're vulnerable, we're not supposed to be preoccupied with pretending not to be vulnerable. We're not supposed to respond by trying to impress people and act like we know it all. So just tell us how Jesus would have us to respond when we're in those many, many moments when we are vulnerable. Be sincere. Be honest. Be vulnerable. Do honest self-assessment. Consider the feedback that you're getting. Don't try to promote yourself. Don't be overly preoccupied with defending yourself. Be yourself. Be sincere, be honest, be vulnerable. Don't be defensive. Just be yourself. Do honest assessment. Do your best. Always do your best to cope with the situation and let the chips fall where they may. And the power of Christ will come through you. That's the kind of weakness that Paul's talking about. When you are vulnerable. Psalm 18:35. The gentleness of God will make you great. This is what King David learned. King David learned to humble himself under the mighty hand of God. And if he would be sincere, honest, vulnerable, do his best to obey God, but let the chips fall where they may. Don't be defensive. Don't try to impress anybody. Just be yourself. Psalm 18:35. The gentleness of God will make you great. Bye, friends. We'll see you next time.